Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. Max is nearly here. I haven't, you know what? I haven't felt, I, I haven't apologized for a delay since I stopped flying for Mango. So I guess this is a way for me to practice it again, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologize extensively for this 30-minute delay. Um, it's my fault. He was on his way back from the shooting range. He actually did a 3-gun competition today, or something similar to 3-gun, and he told me he was going to be home at about 6, just before 6, and then at the end of the conversation, he's like, "Okay, let's do it for 7." I was like, "Cool, 7," and then I programmed it for 6, and in my head I thought it was 6. So this is all my fault. He's going to be with us in 5 minutes. He's just locking his guns up very quickly, and then he's going to hop on the stream, and then we're going to have this discussion. I think it's a very important one to have about expired firearm licenses, about the amnesty, about finding a way forward, and what it entails and what the implications are, and so on and so forth. So good evening, Sven, Shoal, Heine, Andrea. My fan from Louisiana is hopefully here. Jeanette Sanderson. Thank you for tuning in to Whiskey Friday. That was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. And yeah, so you've got me for about 5 minutes. So if there's anything you want to ask me or talk to me about before Max joins us in studio, just for a bit of background, Max Rosley, the man behind Motivus, legal practitioner, lawyer, attorney. He's done a lot of work on my behalf. He's excellent at his motivations and helping the firearm community. And I think he's just joined us. Hang on. Hello, Maximus.
Hey, bud, how's it going? Sorry about that.
No worries. Did you have a good day shooting?
Yeah. When is it never?
No, it's obviously so. So this is completely my fault that we're sitting in this situation. But thanks for joining. And this is we were having an offline discussion about the amnesty and about expired licenses. And then you came back to me and said, you think we really need to do a stream about this because this is something that's worth unpacking. Talk to me. Actually talk to the folks, and we're just going to have a convo, and then they can hoy questions at us.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm sure if we trace it back now and we take everybody through it, I think let's start unpacking the basics.
Yeah.
So our Firearms Control Act, obviously there's sections 24, which prescribes renewal of a firearm license 90 days before its expiry.
Do you want me to pop this up on screen, by the way, because I can find those sections and I can share the screen. It might be worthwhile.
That would be cool. I think that's worth walking people through it.
Okay, section 24, right? I'll go.
That's it. Yeah.
Quickly find it. Yeah.
So yeah, section 24 prescribes that a license must be renewed 90 days. It doesn't specify. So in law, we generally just interpret it as calendar days. Unless obviously the obligation belongs to Saps, they like to then interpret it as
there 90, we go.
Business days. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. So yeah, section 24 states. I think let's just have a look if I can zoom in there at section 24.
Oh, you're on your cell phone, are you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like I didn't have time to mobilize.
Well, I can zoom in on your behalf. Hang on, I can do that.
Yeah. They're at section 24.1. Yeah.
Does that help? Hang on,
yeah,
I can probably make it even bigger. There you go. Renewal of license.
There we go.
Boom.
Yeah. So the holder of a license issued in terms of this chapter who wishes to renew the license must at least 90 days before the date of expiry of the license apply to the registrar for its renewal. Okay. So renewal, basically, you've done a good stream on what renewal entails, and the renewal process. But unfortunately, given the fact that there's no remedy in the Act subsequent to expiry. So once a license has expired,
you're fucked.
Let's not beat around the bush.
To get straight to the point, you've got problems.
Yeah, you've got problems. And look, Gosa's case, they tried to they try to draw attention to the fact that there are fundamental flaws in the, in the entire criminalization of people for administrative error. Because basically, let's talk about the criminalization. If you can just put up section 28 of the Act.
Let me just scroll to it quickly. The one that says termination. The one that some people are willfully misinterpreting at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah. Everybody's being very convenient in their interpretation.
Okay. And let me put it back for us to the stream. Boom. There you go. Section 28, termination of firearm license.
Yeah, and if you could just zoom in there, that once it.
Which part do you want?
28.1.
28.1. Okay. A license issued in terms of the chapter terminates upon expiry of the relevant period. That one contemplated in section.
Yes, that's 27. Right. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So
we'll see if I can highlight it. Not really. Okay. Well, kind of, but there. Yeah. It's there where the cursor is, guys.
Upon the expiry of the relevant period contemplated in section 27, unless renewed timeously, the license then obviously terminates. And as the Supreme Court of Appeal used the brutal words of, it ceases existence. Yeah. And basically the logic that the court then drew through was that whilst, yes, there are fundamental, obviously a lot of people, I mean, it's 400 and something thousand, if not more. I mean, those are the 400 and something thousand that were actually, recorded. But I mean,
it's probably more by now, maybe even double by now. It could be close to 1 million people.
I don't want to say 99%. Let's not do the stats thing because, our friends we'll leave the stats to GFSA, but
what the 99% of stats are made up on the fly stats. Those
ones. Exactly. Yeah, 99% of the stats are correct 60% of the time. So it's a thing of most of the people simply forgot. It's administrative error, and the legitimacy. A lot of people. I mean, if you were in a coma or if you were sitting overseas when the Rona broke out, and you couldn't renew. As we discussed offline, there are ways and means. You can authorize, and a lot of the DFOs are extremely understanding and extremely, they assist people in those circumstances. But look, when it comes to, the way that the SCA interpreted this whole debacle, and the way that the SCA said, look, the Act is clear. We don't understand, why is everybody so angry, And if you want to keep your guns, renew them. And that was kind of the SCA stance. And they took a very, very, very ordinary meaning, applied the word of the law as is. And there was no, and I've said a couple of times on the Motivus page, I'm really of the view that if the SCA wanted to help, and if there was a little bit of mercy, I believe it could have. It did have the discretion, but I don't think the sympathy for expired license holders was, displayed. And it's sad, it was a big smack. We as a community took a big knock, and you'll obviously get some people experiencing Schadenfreude out of that, and then you'll obviously get the people that were affected by it now saying, but guys, where to from here? What now? And as I say, it irks me that we keep trying to fix the circumstances by using the only sort of operational tool that, which is this amnesty provision in the Act, instead of saying, well, shit, we can't really every time 400,000 expired license holders build up because people are going to forget. Potentially, should we not have a look at this legislation?
Absolutely.
And should we not consider potentially working in a fine or something, an administrative penalty for failing to renew timeously or that sort of thing, But no,
just bring a little bit of common sense to it. I mean, we know that, and just for the audience, listen, both Mox and I are AK-47s for everyone kind of people. We don't think a registry serves a purpose. We don't think licensing individual firearms has a purpose. We don't think renewing the license has a purpose. But this isn't tonight a discussion about our freedom philosophy. This is about the shit sandwich that our community is forced to consume.
The objective mess that we find ourselves in as a community. No, and you know that for me it's difficult, you know, because we're so ingrained in this firearm community, and because this is sort of what we eat, drink, and sleep, you know, and think about my guns all the time. You know what I mean? And it's a thing of you. It's difficult for me to say to a fellow firearm owner, well, this is it, you know, and it was. Remember when the GOSA interim interdict was in place. So let's just you know, move back. So there were a hell of a lot of people sitting with expired licenses, and then GOSA said, well, we're going to have to do something to remedy this and assist them, because remember, SA Hunters went to the Concord, I think it was 2018, early 2018, and the Concord, we got that scathing remark of firearm ownership in South Africa is a privilege. And it's not a right. And, you know, it's as simple as that. We don't know what you're trying to enforce in the Concord, you know, and that's the crux of it. You know, I don't want to derivate from the court order or, you know, but they said, look, it's not a right. It's not a, you know, it's not a fundamental right. So, and then
there's some good questions in the comments. We'll get to those, guys. Don't worry. We're not going to skip you. Sorry, Mox. I just want you to
not at all. No. And then with Section 28, you know, with that now the SCA with the GOSA judgment that was secured. I mean, that interim order ran, I think, from June or July 2018 up until it was set aside now by the SCA. And you know, they delivered a scathing judgment about you know, Justice Prinsloo's decision, which came to the aid. And actually, the assistance of 400 and something thousand people who are obviously falling victim to the sort of administrative disaster that the Act creates by not making provision for expired licenses. You know, so basically, the expired license holders are chucked in the same pool as the guys who are buying guns in Hillbrow, and in possession of unlicensed, unlawful firearms. And GFSA is running, and they're enjoying this narrative because. Look at how many unlawful and unlicensed firearms there are, you know, but these guys have owned their guns for 10 or 15 or 20 years, you know, maybe longer, because they maybe migrated from the previous Act and they renewed once, you know. It's absolutely absurd. And, you know, here we are. So again, I don't want to go into the liberty perspective of it, because then you and I are just going to start babbling.
We're going to be here all night. And on that note, things are happening in the background. There are campaigns I'm involved with, from the Paratus side, to start amending legislation, GOSA as well, and not big amendments. We're starting with small and then working up, because this is a battle that will be won in the court of public opinion, not in the court of law.
Hearts and minds. Yeah, we've got to start winning
hard,
those,
expensive lessons the judiciary is not offering, guys. Sorry.
You know, I always say that, you know, this legislation, it could be so functional. You know, it could really work if we would just iron it out and stop trying to panel beat it with these irregular provisions in the legislation. You know what I mean? So, as I say, why are we trying to correct this mess by sucking the guns back into, you know, the Saps administration, and then trying to somehow secure that ownership again and license them again? But the problem is still there, and those very same people might just forget again. You know what I mean? Like,
as much as I'd like people to have my problem, where I wake up at 3 a.m. and check if my licenses are expiring, because I'm paranoid about
everything. Yeah, no, I mean,
but that's not going to happen.
Well, that was sort of the crux of yesterday's chat as well, about, you know, once you license a firearm, it's a serious undertaking, you know, and
it's a very
there are administrative considerations, and we have actually kind of very few obligations in terms of the Act. From an administrative perspective, we apply for the license the first time, so we do the competency, we apply for the license, and then 10 years later we need to renew it. and you're only allowed one
I don't
Section
think
13 handgun. You know?
the consequences of an expired firearm license is hammered home efficiently. I don't think people are told how off the chart severe it is if you miss, because people are like, yeah, but if you miss your driver's license renewal, it's just a fine. Or I was like, yeah, and the rational approach to driver licenses or TV licenses or vehicle licenses are one thing. When it comes to guns, they're not treated the same way. If it comes to guns, if if it expires, you're basically a criminal.
But that's due to the stigmatism. But that's where we're struggling as a community. We're not winning the hearts and minds out there. Guns are stigmatized as dangerous, tools and mechanisms of evil and that sort of thing. Whereas the gun on my hip is to protect me and my wife, and the gun on your hip is to do the same. And the gun on any I think lawful firearm owner's hip is his defensive gun is his defensive gun, and it's there for that purpose, to repel unlawful and evil attacks against him or his family, by guys that didn't go through the licensing process and took that Z88 from a cop, or
exactly.
So we're being demonized as it's a community thing, but I don't think that the recourse, as you say, is a court-based recourse. I think we've got to start as a community taking this very seriously. And it's an ambassador thing. Every guy that licenses a firearm is an ambassador for lawful firearm ownership in South Africa, and we've got to portray that. And it's a very difficult position. I think that this has sort of driven the pertinency and the importance of time-use renewal home. If it hasn't, I don't know what will, but I mean, this has been highly stressful for expired license holders because of the implications. Now in terms of section 2 or 3, it is, you may not be in possession of a firearm without a license or a permit or authorization. Okay, so basically that puts you in unlawful possession of a firearm, and it's an unlicensed firearm. So irrespective, that's the narrative, and that's what the definition is in the Act, and that's
section 3 actually. You want to put it on screen 3 for you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that would be that's where it gets difficult. Is you may not. Yeah, no person may possess a firearm unless he or she holds a license, permit, or authorization. So again, with the 28, with section 28, with a termination or the license ceasing existence upon its expiry, unless it's renewed timelessly. Section 3, you're in contravention thereof because you're in possession of a firearm.
So that's the problem. Now, just to bring some light back to the conversation. So there's not all fucking doom and gloom, people. And Jeanette, I will get in contact with you. Please send me an email I'll give you my address quickly to that email address, and then I'll do what I can to assist you with regards to I'll just leave that up for a second, sorry. info@paratus.info. And thank you for the super chat, Marika. Yes, there is now a life-size me in your living room. Philippe actually touches on what I wanted to discuss with you quickly, because he says he was overseas, was 2 weeks into the 90 days, notified the DFO in advance. He said no problem, accepted the renewal. No, this won't be a problem higher up, Philippe, because here's the thing. You need to renew your firearm license before it expires, okay? Yeah. They want you to renew before 90 days. If you renew within that 90-day period, you need to explain why. There's an actual section on the form that requires you to fill it in. And I mean, I can bring it up on the screen now, but it's going to be a bit redundant. Otherwise, we're going to be bringing things up on the screen all the time. There's a section that you have to fill in. Okay.
If you ask him, pop a mail, and you can send him it's very straightforward. If you renew before the expiry date, they will assist you. Yep. And it's not challenged. You're not going to.
If you miss your 90 days, you've got 2 ways out. And Max, you can correct me if I'm talking shit. First way out is you just fill in that section on the form and explain why you are not. There are two paragraphs. I don't know why they made it 2, but it doesn't matter. But the one says the 90 days, the other one says cutoff date. Both pertain to being within 90 days, but before expiry. If that freaks you out, you can take that gun of yours, book it into dealer stock, and then apply for it as a new license and not as a renewal. But
yeah,
those are basically your only two ways out.
Yeah, so the second
days.
you dealer stock a gun, that goes off of your firearm owning profile and you start from scratch.
Yep.
And remember your competency, this is where it gets tricky, because if you own only one firearm, let's say a handgun, remember your competency must be renewed upon the expiry of the last firearm per category.
Yep.
Which means that if you have a handgun and you've only got one handgun and it's a section 13 handgun, that license is valid for 5 years, and your competency, your handgun competency, must be renewed simultaneously with that handgun. Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yes, you can dealer stock the handgun, but you've still got to get that competency application renewal in. Otherwise, your competency expires simultaneously with the handgun license.
Yeah. And if you and Paul actually touches on the thing we're going to talk about next, I'm just going to leave it up there. But if you renew at 89 days and your competency you have to renew at the same time, that's not a problem. You can still do that.
Yeah.
The thing is that the moment your license expires, that's where the problems start. And as Paul says, there's nothing that prevents you renewing 120 days before. There's nothing that prevents you from renewing 5 months before expiry. And you actually had some recommendations on this.
There's some problems, practical problems with that, is that the DFOs view that, or rather the registry views that as a flogging of the system, and basically you're starting to clog it with applications that aren't due for processing yet, which I think is highly irregular, in as far as so. If we renew late, we become criminals.
Yeah.
But if we want to renew early to avoid forgetting or administrative failure, or with foresight of an issue, in renewing timeously, you send us away because it becomes an administrative mess for you. Because now everybody's coming a month before, so we've got to do a year before even. Now we've got to do this a year before we should be doing it, because you only need to renew 90 days before. So I find it irregular that they send you away, because if I read the act, it says at least 90 days before. And in my view, why can't I renew all of my guns at the same time to bring them all in line, and have them expire in the same year? I think that it's absurd. If I'm 2 years into my license period, why can't I renew it? It doesn't bar me from doing so. It doesn't say you may not, within a certain period.
Fact, Max, shouldn't we collaborate maybe and draw up an affidavit people can download and print out, that if their DFO sends them away, that they must then sign the affidavit that they did attempt to apply X days before expiry and then were told to fuck off? Sorry for listen guys, my language on my channel is a bit strong, so I don't have a potty mouth.
That's why we listen.
But that's why you listen. And then at least, if there's problems down the line, your ass is covered, and say, I attempted more than once to comply with this stupid bullshit law, and I was denied administrative justice because I kept being sent away because they didn't want to process my paperwork, even though because
I was too early. But if I'm too late, I'm stuffed. So and then, as I say, I think that's not a bad idea, but also within reason. One must consider the fact that a lot of the DFOs in certain areas or districts are processing tons of applications for new firearm applications per week, and their capacity is also X amount. So it's a thing of, I'd say 5 months before is fair, 6 months before is fair. But anything before that, I know that the DFOs they're quite partial to being of assistance in those circumstances. They'll tell you to come back, But I find it highly irregular, considering the punitive, outcome if you don't renew timeously versus I want to renew early. I want to be the lawful compliant gun owner. Let me, no, sorry. It's an administrative irritation for us in the processing offices, So, but that's dealing with any,
Okay, so So there we have it, guys. 5 to 6 months before attempt renewal, Max and I will brainstorm, see if we can organize your PDF template affidavit thingamabob, so that if they give you hassles, that you can demand that they sign it, and that they explain why they sent you away. Are you happy with that, Max?
Yeah, but they definitely. I know that the administrative officers, or the DFO office won't sign it, and they'll just basically tell you to stuff off. So I would recommend that potentially you sign it, and you just go to the desk and say on such and such date, because there will be a date stamp. I attempted to renew, and I did ask them for written reasons. They refused to sign an affidavit, or they refused to give me a written statement as to why I can't renew early. I've tried to be lawful, so just keep your evidence together, guys. That's something that for me is a massive irritation, and I think it will save people a lot of heartache moving forward. Keep your docs together. If you submit an application to the Central Firearms Registry, keep a copy of it. And try and include the annexes in your copy. So fill in the form, don't sign it. Obviously, that gets signed in front of the the DFO, but and sign your motivations and initial them, and add your annexes, and make sure that your annexes are together. That being for a dedicated sporting or hunting, or occasional sporting or hunting, or even a self-defense license. Make a full copy of that bundle, because they do lose documentation. And if you can prove that there was a compliant document that was signed, because you just get a date stamp on your copy while you're at the office, just say to them, please just give me a date stamp on this. That's all I want, and basically that's the day that you submit. So have a full copy of what you submitted, and keep good records of your certificates, because a lot of people that need to now renew their competency certificates don't know where their competency certificates are, and it's like, okay, what now? So I'm like, well, try get hold of the person that you did competency with. Now, you'll remember in the early 2000s, just after the implementation of the new legislation, it was 2004, and there was like this spate of overnight guys that popped up, and they started doing competency training. That was under SACITA, yeah. And all of a sudden, there was just this flooding of competency applications. And these guys also just disappeared overnight, later on, when it became less lucrative, if I can put it that way.
Yep.
And there wasn't that flow. Yeah. And, it just disappeared. And now to get in contact with them is, it's 15 years later, 16 years later. Now, how do you secure certification from them? And I don't think, does SACITA even exist anymore?
I think they do, but
how does the administrative
that drama was so extensive? I've lost track of what happened, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because the shift from so in about 2015, I think we shifted from SACITA to PFTC, which is the Professional Firearms Training Council.
Yeah, so SACITA still exists, but PFTC is running the show at the moment. Yes.
I understand. So it's for me, it's so confusing that I just know that now we need the PFTC certificates and the PFTC statement of results to accompany those certificates. Whereas under the SACITA, prior to 2015, it was just the SACITA certificates that you got, the different unit standards or modules. But to get those now, I can't answer that, because from an administrative perspective, I tell people, well, get hold of the people that you did training with, or get hold of another competency, provider, and find out how to get your copies of your certification.
So fun story. And before I get into my fun story, Max, just want to tell people in the comment section, don't stress if your renewal is in process and it's taking forever to be approved. My self-defense renewal took well over a year. It's a good thing. As long as you've got the receipt, that's fine. What I would recommend is make a certified copy of that receipt, laminate it, and keep it on you if you're going to carry the gun. And then when you finally get your renewal approved, it'll run from a new date forward. So you actually score that time. The longer they take to process it, the more time you score. Secondly, my training certificates, the institution through which I did mine, lost their PFTC accreditation. Okay. So, and we had a chat about that. I think you vaguely remember the story. And I couldn't quite figure out what to do. So ultimately, I went to another provider because I'd been a dedicated sports shooter for some time, and now I need to, redo the competencies. They're like, okay, this is a recognition of prior learning. I did an RPL because I already had the stuff previously, my training certificates, and that was it. It still cost a bit of money, but far cheaper than redoing competencies, and far easier. So if you do end up with illegitimate proficiency training certificates, go find a place that can do an RPL for you. That's just the way out.
You see, this is practical because a lot of people, now with the Amnesty compliance, will need to renew their competencies, and simultaneously with the application for a license for the firearm, which has been now voluntarily surrendered. So
I'm not laughing. I think you were smiling at some of the comments, but yes, this is exactly it, Max. No, I'll bring them on screen in a moment.
So it's a thing of I think the practical thing, the first thing is go and look in your drawers for your competency stuff. That's number one. And make sure that it's all the unit standards. So I published an article the other day. I think you saw that, regarding the different unit standards, which was the legal test, knowledge of the Firearms Control Act. Then after that, there was the handle use a handgun. And then there's the manually operated rifle. There's the self-loading carbine or rifle. And then there's shotguns. So there's 5 proficiency certificates. If you've done all of them, obviously, if you only did a handgun and rifle proficiency, those are the certificates that need to be in your possession, plus the legal proficiency certificate. Now, but although I don't think any of the PFTC guys would have expired yet, so I think most of this is also CETA. The plain CETA certificates.
It's the CETA ones that are the issue. That's where I got my issue from. Mr. van Rensburg makes a good point that there's this mythology that it generates revenue to renew for the cops to renew firearm licenses, and if you do the maths and the man hours, it actually doesn't. It's a net loss. The amount of processing time that's put into the stuff, it's not cheap. It's definitely not worth $170 you pay. It's far more expensive. Far more expensive.
But I think practically, I don't want to keep you too long tonight. I think
we still have to talk about the Amnesty very, very quick. Well, not very quickly, but JD touches on a very important point that we also discussed about.
I think I'm always so nervous giving my independent view, but that would be my advice, and one can always get another independent view. That's the beauty of it. Don't stick your finger up the single advisor's nostril. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, so green licenses. These are licenses, for those that don't know, that were issued under the old Arms and Ammunition Act. Okay, they were either issued in an ID book, there was like a little a stamp in there, or a little ticket, or they were green license cards. Those were the more recent Arms and Ammunition Act. That was up until 2003, 2004, before the implementation of the Firearms Control Act 60 of 2000, which was only implemented in 2004. So those licenses are what we refer to as green licenses. So there are 2 types of green license holders. There are green license holders who never subsequently transferred from the Firearms Control Act, from the Arms and Ammunition Act to the Firearms Control Act. So there was never a green to white transition. Okay, they still are in possession of their green licenses for those firearms. Okay, then the second category would be those that did transition from the Arms and Ammunition Act, so from green to white. So in 2009, there was also a SA Hunters case, and the outcome in the SA Hunters case was that, I don't want to quote, I think it was Justice Prinsloo, but I think
it was Justice Prinsloo,
Is it okay? So there was a declaration in an interim declaration, an order of court, which said that all green licenses, to paraphrase, because he refers to the licenses listed in Schedule 1, blah, 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 but that refers to the green licenses. All green licenses remain valid and lawful, pending the outcome of the main application or adjudication on the main application. Okay, so it's a very broad court order because he used the word all. Now, all was indiscriminate in between the two categories. So a lot of the people that did transition like to interpret the word all to incorporate green licenses which were subsequently followed and licensed under the new legislation, under the new act, which licenses expired, for a lot of the guys that held the green and the white licenses. Now, the guys who have never subsequently licensed under the Firearms Control Act 60 of 2000, so the guys that only have the green licenses issued to them before 2004, green is gold. I see that order
if you
as
lose
being,
that license, you can reprint it. Just apply for reprint. There's a document.
Theoretically, yes. I'm looking for success stories in reprinting green licenses because I haven't heard many.
I've got 3.
Did you get reprints?
I got 3 people with reprints over the last year
all right.
or so.
I'd actually like you after the show just to send me a process on how to do that, because I've got a lot of people that are coming, with green licenses, and I can't practically assist them, but at least I could advise them on how to get those green licenses printed. I'll
send you the form. It's downloadable, and apparently they do process them still. So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. So category A, the green license holder that never transitioned to the new act, that 2009 judgment is clear as day. Okay.
You're covered.
Your green license is lawful and valid. Now, category B, you are the sort of the shadowy part of the law now, because yes, there was a judgment in 2009 that said all licenses issued under the Arms and Ammunition Act are lawful and valid. So obviously, us being libertarians and firearm owners by heart identify that as literally all, does not distinguish between category A and category B as discussed now. So whether that, okay, so the practical, and here's where
the cops disagree. And
are
you happy to go to court on this? That's the actual question.
After the 2 or 3 hidings that we as a firearm owning community have gotten at court now in the last while, between SA Hunters getting thumped at Constitutional Court, between GOSA and the SCA chastising the judge, and we don't seem to be I mean, if you look at the GOSA interim order, that was a huge win for expired license holders, and they've been deprived of that now by the SCA. The SCA said, no, bullshit, your license is expired. There is alternate remedy. The court says it uses like the crude words of, with respect, obviously, but uses this sort of crude, you know what, there is an alternate remedy. How about you renew your license timeously? Then you won't have a problem, but easy said from behind the bench, and I just feel that now,
to be crude, the Supreme Court of Appeal, if you're a gun owner, doesn't give a fuck about criminalizing you, and they'll happily nail your gizzards to a yard arm if you forget to renew a license. This is the judicial ambience under which we presently live.
So it's very difficult for us at this stage to with the same type of predictability. I was talking to a couple of senior colleagues, and in the past there was a certain I don't want to say the past. I mean, it's not like there was ever good old years in the judiciary, but I'm saying like there was a certain predictability and there was a certain outcome, that you could predict. But now it seems that the tendency is not pro firearm owning community, and it seems that it is very sort of, you guys have a privilege of firearm ownership, and if you want to enjoy that privilege, comply with the law. And if you don't comply with the law, we will strip you of that privilege, because that's, it's a dangerous, that's why I say we're not winning the hearts and minds front either. So we need to start doing that as a community. But anyway,
I'm going on a township tour with Big Daddy Liberty, I think in a week or two, to do exactly this. He wants me to come speak to the poorer communities about their gun rights. And I think this is a fantastic idea, because that's really where the battle needs to go, is to make them aware that their lives matter and they should be allowed to defend them with guns, and that our laws are elitist bullshit. So yeah, there's many fronts on which this fight's going to get fought, guys. We're not down and out. We're not accepting the fact that this is the way things are going to be. The sole purpose of tonight's discussion is to try and explain what you can do within the confines of what presently exists to, for want of a better word, unfuck your situation. And for the gentleman who asked if I was going to make a no step on snake Velcro patch for his plate carrier, sure, we're on that. That's going to happen.
Make him one. Those are the best patches.
Yeah, those are the best patches. And Philippe, if you can't send a super chat, I've got your email address. If you want to send something to the show, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We'll make a plan. But not to not drag the discussion.
Yeah, I just want to finish up on category B license holders. Sorry, so that was the guys those were the guys that did transition. So Saps is of the view that the second that you licensed under the Firearms Control Act 60 of 2000, you no longer enjoy the benefits associated or the obligations even associated with the Arms and Ammunition Act, the old green licenses, and you are now subject to the Firearms Control Act 60 of 2000. So you cannot transition from one piece of legislation to the other, stuff up, and then say, okay, no, I want to fall under that legislation again, because
well, you can, but there are risks, and ultimately,
that's what I'm saying. That so
big boy rules.
For me, I don't know how confident I would be in saying, but the 2009 order said all green licenses, although that is what the order says. Those are the ordinary words. And how can something be an offense, or how can something not be what the ordinary words mean? One must now, then the whole question goes into purposive interpretation, and I'm not going there. I'm not touching that with, a 10-foot pole, because
since I'm not a legal practitioner, I can say disparaging things about the courts and the judiciary that you can't. But there's been
smile.
There's unfortunately a lot of politics that are finding their ways into judgments and into courts right now, especially on cases that aren't clear-cut criminal or civil. And we've seen it with lockdown. We've seen, one has to say, okay, were the counsels of all the pro-liberty cases brought before court really that inept, or are the courts really just not fond of freedom that goes against the common good right now? Common good.
This whole Section 37 thing is also making it extremely convenient, because the state does have very, very broad discretion, in as far as its decision making is concerned here, and they're owning it. It's not say they're not making it rain,
Exactly, and the courts are not going to pull the choke chain. That's kind of what
and can you imagine, and that's exactly what happened in the GOSA matter. Is the interim interdict that GOSA had secured in 2018 said, but Saps, until this main application which seeks to allow people to bring themselves back into the lawful ownership of their firearms that have expired, that was the main application. Don't touch these people's guns. Refrain from taking steps and that sort of thing. And then the argument that was raised by Saps was, but you're stopping us from doing our jobs. We must prosecute these people. That's our duty. We carry a duty to prosecute unlawful firearm owners. And I was just like, okay, so what about, as I say, we're failing to distinguish between the guys that are buying their stock in Mozambique or in Hillbrow and bringing it across,
or even worse, stealing them out of military armories, or
the safes, at the police stations. But let's not, like I say, it's just a thing of we have a lot of misdirected focus in as far as the enforcement of unlawful firearms are concerned. So, but anyway, look, we are in the objective position, and amnesty was announced on Friday.
Yeah, and this is where you're getting to the meat and potatoes of tonight's.
Yeah, this is the good stuff. Yeah. So, look, at this stage, I just need to clarify that it's been approved, and it set out the fact that we or expired license. I say we. Did you note that I don't have an expired license? But what I'm trying to say is that we as a community can apply for licenses after voluntary surrender of these expired license firearms. So, guys, at this stage, there is no alternative. The Ghost interim interdict was set aside. That was in July.
Going to court isn't going to fix this, and there's going to be no amendments to the legislation, and it's a 6-month
not anytime
period.
soon. Yeah, it's a 6-month period, and nobody else is answering the call, or doing anything about it. So here we are. Now, if you have an expired license firearm, a lot of people, are sitting with like Beretta Silver Pigeons and Holland rifles, and stuff of horrific value, and but what can you do? It's I really feel for you guys, and the guys that do have these expired licenses, and the Glock that you dreamt of that you bought and you licensed for self-defense, and 5 years later you're sitting here going, but I don't want to give it away. I know it's valuable to you. I know exactly what it means on your hip, and I know what it means to your family's security. But you mean a lot more to your family's security this side of the jail bars than in there. And I'm just saying that I don't like fear mongering. I don't like to tell people that Saps is going to kick our doors down and take our guns or come and prosecute us. But there's nothing stopping them from doing it once this amnesty lapses. For unlawful possession.
I'll give you my 2 cents very quickly. One, they were very quick on getting this amnesty. It is quite clear that the police are the dog that caught the bus. There's no way they can. I think they understand that it's impossible for them to do this confiscation, and that there are hazards and risks to it that far exceed the benefits to them doing it.
Yeah, well,
because the 6-month amnesty is quite generous. And there are pros and cons to this. I need to emphasize this as someone who hates amnesties, as someone who hates this entire shit show with every fiber of my being, and it makes me angry.
The lack of liberty behind it.
Yeah, okay. I'm a fucking anarchist. I don't like this bullshit. But understand this. If you miss this amnesty and it expires and you did nothing, and you find yourself in a court of law because you're now being prosecuted, you will probably... I don't see there
being any mercy.
It will be ugly.
Yeah, I think that it's been shown that there's this sort of, there's a lack of sympathy, and there's a lack of apathy, and there's a lack of, but we don't get why it's so important to you. What are you on about? Why didn't you renew it then? That's sort of the stance. But
there are ways and means around this amnesty, and there are good parts, not good parts. It's not called good parts, but there are workable parts to it.
Yeah, so look, the opportunity is there. Now, the workability of this, I can't really comment on. It's a thing of, I don't know whether Saps can play custodian of 400,000 plus firearms. I don't know how they are going to administer that, administrative. It's already, any firearm owner knows how long it takes to get a simple license application through. And now we're going to be inundated with firearms that were licensed years ago, with, this flood over the next 6 months into the system. How are they going to be processed? How were the last amnesties things processed? I haven't heard mountains of success stories or outcomes yet, and I see that a lot of the stations, or at station level, there's boxes full of the amnesty applications still, that were captured, but I just don't know how this is being administered. And then there's apparently the ballistic testing phase. Ballistic testing, it's absurd. I cannot see the value of the ballistic testing that they do. Like, apparently it's anyway, what does it matter? That's not for me to,
Yeah. So we can go through the practical side of it quickly. So if you've got a expired license, let me just add this, and just add the view here as well to it. This is the Gazette. And essentially, if you want to hand in, and Max, please pop in, if you want to hand in with the intent of renewing, you need to let them notify in writing when you surrender that firearm. With a written application must, with the exception of police annexure, be handed to the duly appointed designated amnesty officer at the police station. And the application must state the full names, identity, passport numbers, all that sort of stuff.
So that's the amnesty compliance phase. So I like to break this down into phases. Phase one is amnesty compliance, right? You fill in the amnesty compliance documents, and it's the voluntary surrender phase. Okay, here I'm complying with the amnesty. I sign my documents. Here are my amnesty documents, and here is my gun. Okay, and you voluntarily surrender it to Saps. All right, now that goes onto Saps stock, as per my understanding. And it's sucked into the system. I don't know how and I don't know where, but the guns go into the ether. And then basically the concept behind it is then within 14 days thereafter, if it is your intention to do so, this amnesty, as per the previous amnesty, affords you the opportunity to apply for a new license for that firearm which you've surrendered. Okay. So obviously you've got to keep your serial numbers and, the details of the firearm and, take a pertinent note of that. But I propose that the day that you go and comply, surrender the firearm and do phase 2, which is the application, on the same day, because the amnesty says within 14 days after the, compliance with phase 1, which is the surrender phase. So, and when you do apply for the, for that license, remember to renew your competencies, because that competency probably, so unless there are subsequent licenses for rifles or for handguns or that sort of thing, then your competency is still valid, because your competency lapses with the last license per category. Okay. So per category, I mean handgun as a category, rifle, which is manually operated rifle, shotgun, and then self-loading carbine. Okay, those 4 categories. Per category, if you have more than one of those, and the one expired and the other one is still valid, your competency is still valid, okay? Because that competency terminates with the last license per category. Right. Same applies to rifles, same applies to shotguns. You understand it the same, eh?
Yeah, I understand the same.
That's been my understanding this entire time. Yeah. Now, what's interesting here is that the competency, they haven't submitted a directive as they did with the previous one, but you applied for the renewal of your competency, but you apply for a new license for that firearm. Okay, so it's not a renewal application for the firearm; it's a new license application. So SAPS 271 type license application, but you renew your competency. Which is odd, because on that same premise, I don't want to get into the SAPS logic now, but they are allowing you to renew an expired.
What logic?
You're being allowed to renew an expired competency, but the court just said that once it ceases to exist, so how come I can renew an expired competency certificate, but I can't renew an expired firearm license? And I get thwarted, and you defend this vehemently in the court of law that, no, you cannot renew after expiry. But anyway, let's not get into that. So practically,
just a
phase
quick question.
1 is compliance.
The written application, is it a specific form or just a letter with all the details?
Which application?
The written notification for handing in for amnesty.
No, I think that's the form that there are amnesty forms that you get from the DFO.
No, that's the one.
That you comply with. Yeah. So there's an amnesty form, compliance form. Make sure you get a copy if you do, comply and you surrender. And make sure that you just get a receipt that sets out your firearm serial number, the date of handing it in, the license number, stuff like that. Please just keep copies of stuff and don't put it in a drawer or something like that. Go put it in your safe, which now stands empty in a lot of cases. Just go and put it there so that you can get that gun back in the safe. But just if there's any form of administrative failure, that you can supplement and fix that by submitting the correct application documents, all right? So that would be the phase one. That's the notice of compliance, all right? So that you get from your, what's a designated amnesty officer. And then after compliance with the amnesty, there's basically that includes the voluntary surrender, okay, of the firearm. So there must be a receipt for that where it sets out the fact that on this day, I submitted into the care of, the South African Police Service, this firearm in compliance with the amnesty, which obviously the whole point of the amnesty is to absolve me of any form of prosecution for the possession of an unlicensed firearm. Okay. But then this amnesty says within 14 days, the person so surrendering, it doesn't say the license holder, it says the person surrendering the firearm may apply for the license. But let's not get too clever again on who applies. We rather wait for a directive which says, which clarifies this, this gazette, because we did the same, or not we, but the firearm owning community did the same with the last amnesty. Is like, yeah, but I'm surrendering this firearm, so I can apply for it. But obviously there's no condition here that says license holder or previous ownership. It just says the person surrendering. So that needs to be clarified, because that's not clear enough at this stage. It's too broad. And obviously I'm wondering, with the wording of that, are there like criminal guns that can now be licensed under this amnesty? Because you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't say like the license holder or previous lawful ownership must be proven. It's like, can you sort of just the AK that is buried in the garden, sort of go and,
it's an interesting point,
surrender that and license that? It's very poorly worded, and it's very broad strokes again. So let's just get some declaration first. Just give it a week or so, and let's just let our designated amnesty officers mobilize and get themselves ready.
Well, in the meantime, you can get ready so that you can have all your ducks in a row.
Yes, I don't know how we're going to. Yeah, there's going to be a hell of a lot of amnesty applicants now, because a lot of people were waiting for the outcome of the GOSA main application, and I mean, GOSA really gave it
much
their
choice,
shot.
I guess.
No, but I mean, yes, GOSA stuck it to them, and they took the application by the horns, and they took it to court. And I think that people lose sight of the fact that GOSA did that for the expired license holders. And I think that, Gideon, I don't know how many, but how many people actually contributed to the fight financially? Not a lot. How many expired license holders were there? 400 and something. Yeah.
So ultimately, the problem is there's a big free rider problem. There was, and it's not financially viable to keep on litigating like this, because the people who really need to contribute don't. And
they just follow the page, and then they shit themselves when things don't go well.
Yeah. So
and then it's everybody else's fault. Yeah. No. But anyway, so So just to wrap it up from a compliance perspective, if you have an expired white license, use the amnesty. Okay. If you have a green license, you do not need to use the amnesty, because the 2009 judgment declares all of those licenses valid in perpetuity. If you have a green license and it is followed by a white license, go get an independent legal opinion. In as far as the risk of trying to bank on the 2009 judgment, and in as far as I'd love to interpret that judgment, that the all in it, to include green licenses subsequently licensed under the Act, but none of you are paying my, my professional indemnity. So, as I say, get an independent view on that. And I'm not going to advise you, but I would be very cautious in trying to say that, my green license, after my white license expired, I'm now going back to that. I want to be under that Act.
Well,
because
the Saps have clearly telegraphed that they are more than happy to challenge that in court. So if you want to test that for real, how much money do you have to go to court? Yeah, be down for it.
And be a man of conviction then, or a woman of conviction, but don't. One thing, Gideon, like it's just something that I've noticed with our community is like you have to make this decision yourself.
Yeah.
Stop forcing people into a corner to give you the advice and to mitigate your risks. You are a competent firearm owner and adult. Go and get a legal opinion, that you pay for, or go and, take the necessary
free opinions
steps.
Are like arseholes. Everyone has one.
Yeah, and the due consideration. Yeah, but what I'm saying is then they get those opinions, and then it maybe doesn't go their way, and then yes, now I must hold somebody else liable. But just remember, you have an expired license. You need to sort this out. You know what I'm saying? It's not. You need to own this now. You need to take responsibility and be very cautious in how conveniently we interpret legislation, because we saw it yesterday as well with that Section 28 thing. If a license is cancelled, I'm not going to confuse people now, but there were guys coming with these like very technical, now this is how we're going to, why do you want to bypass the amnesty if there's no real other relief in place? I understand that there's no liberty in this compliance, but
there's two more things to this. Actually three. One is if you apply for a new license for your previously lawful property under the amnesty and it is refused, you reserve the right to appeal. If the appeal fails, you reserve the right to take it on judicial review. So you've got at least two safety nets to get you your property back.
Look, this is submitted. Yeah. They don't distinguish. It's an application as per the normal course. Yeah. So it must be sent to the same it must be subject to the same administrative checks and balances that they are in the normal, in the normal course.
And as much as we know the Saps are woeful custodians, they have a duty of due care or a responsibility of due care. So they can't just do what they want with your firearm in their possession. That being said, you are under no obligation to hand in parts that are not actually the firearm. But we're going to get into this in a moment because there's more to it than just what I'm saying, okay? There's a definition of what a firearm is, okay? And I'll do a short video on this as well. And I'll zoom in on the juicy part quickly. Hang on. Stand by. A device manufactured or designed to propel a bullet or projectile through a barrel or cylinder. A device manufactured or designed to discharge rimfire, centerfire, pinfire. A device which is not at the time capable of discharging any bullet or projectile, but which can readily be altered to be a firearm within the meaning of paragraph A or B, ignoring the muzzle, the jewels there, or a barrel frame or receiver. This is important. Barrel frame or receiver of a device mentioned in paragraphs A, B, or C, D. Okay. What this means, I'm just going to leave it up there. If you take out all the springs, the trigger mechanism, the sights, don't hand in your magazines, you only hand in the serialized parts in a Ziploc bag. That is a perfectly acceptable way to surrender a firearm for destruction. How they're going to do ballistic testing on that is a them problem, not a you problem, because they are not entitled to the parts of that device that are not firearm parts. Those are your parts. You can sell them. They belong to you. However, if you do the same thing, if you intend to actually license that gun again, and you're effectively hamstringing their ability to ballistic testing, you're kind of kicking your own ass. So you need to apply a little bit of discretion, read the law, go think about this, make your own decisions on it. But
that for me the concern is, and where I would say like where people need to be extremely careful there as well is then, you are making use of an amnesty, but now you're obstructing Saps from doing the ballistic part of it, which is that last paragraph. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, as I say, as Gideon says, it's a thing of we don't want to circulate our biggest concern, and we were Gideon and I were chatting about it yesterday, but our biggest issue with this is like, okay, the guys that want to apply for licenses, they need to hand in functional guns. Those guns need to be tested, and as soon as they can, get them back. After the ballistic testing.
And you do have access to administrative justice angles on this if you apply. It's not like the thing's just out in the wild. Am I right, Max?
Well, there must be some mechanism of enforcement, and as far as administrative, procedure and, fair periods and stuff. So, I just wonder how many people are going to make use of this, even though we're advising them to. It's a thing of, let's see.
Well, the cool thing, we've had great successes in nailing the Saps on technical points and administrative justice points. Those are types of court cases where gun owners do really well because it's clear-cut-ish.
Yeah, and also because it's so blatantly slow. I mean, we wait up to 6 months for basic license applications. And that's not even during the Rona period. There's people that have waited for ages for the administrative part to take place. So yeah, I'm just very I don't want Paratus to stretch itself to an extent where people get cross with you because now, so I handed in the parts and the DFO told me to bring back the functional gun and then we got into a fight.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's up to you to decide how you want to do this, guys. I'm just giving you options. How you choose to bake this cake, I can't bake it for you. And nor can Max and nor can anybody else. And
like we can arm you with the knowledge, and the consequences of non-compliance. If you have an expired license and you skip this amnesty, we don't know what Saps is going to do on the 1st of February 2021, or what stance it's going to take against expired. But this would be the second amnesty that you didn't make use of. And that after the interim relief having been, set aside by the court, and that there being no alternative. And quite brutally, So it's a thing of be responsible, think about this carefully, and think about the consequences, the value of a firearm versus the value of a high court, or a regional court prosecution matter. Attorneys are expensive.
Yeah. And I'm not aware that there are any, by the way, of questions in the comment section. I'm not aware of any independent ballistic testing options being available. This is Saps's, what do you call it? This is their little dog and pony show. Okay. I'm re-emphasizing this. I've written extensively about amnesties and how much I hate them. I've written extensively about how much I hate tyrannical overreach, how much I hate all these things. I'm fully aware and appraised of the smoke screen and bullshit going on. But we're in a situation where we have now been demonstrated harshly that the court is not on your side if you didn't renew your firearm license. The state has come. The state has come and given you a get out of jail free card shit sandwich you can eat. You can choose to eat it or not. If you don't eat it, the consequences of skipping it and waking up on the 1st of February next year with an expired firearm license and you didn't make use of the amnesty, unless you've got a couple of $1 million for an urgent interdict and willing to, fight a legal battle, how much is that handgun of yours worth, or that Holland and Holland, compared to the consequences of a tyrannical state that's out to get you? Because I might sound paranoid for saying this, but that's clearly what it is.
And you've been advanced the opportunity. Now, whether those firearms will ever be licensed to you, we also can't comment on that. We must accept that Saps is bona fide and that they will, that through this amnesty, they will consider the application as per the normal course, and that you won't be prejudiced because this is now an amnesty firearm, but
we have to accept it with you said must, which is important, people. Please note the must. Not a we like it or we would like to. This is a must.
No, I'm disgusted. I've said it, I've said it a thousand times. Like I say, this is really trying to panel beat a stuff up instead of fixing it. You know what I mean? Like now we're trying to bend it into shape instead of just pulling that whole piece of shit part off and replacing it as any functional.
The public,
I mean,
exactly. The court of public opinion battle isn't going to be over by Feb, guys. As much as you love me and Max and Gosa, we're not going to get you an amendment to the act by the 31st of Jan 2021. Sorry.
Yeah, and and I think something that's going to be fundamental in achieving, that kind of change is our actions as a community. And I think we need to start reflecting a very serious approach to firearm ownership, more serious than we ever have. Start becoming part of the community. Go and join a shooting club. Go and meet the people in your area that are as passionate as you are about your firearm.
Become loud in real life, not just on social media.
Yeah, and start being a contributing member of this community, because we're starting to take shots, and we can't keep getting bliksemed onto our back feet. So we really need to start pulling ourselves together, and instead of consistently trying to worm our way out of shit circumstances because of non-compliance, renew timelessly. We've learned the lesson now. Let's, as a community, start taking this seriously. Yeah.
And as much as we want to get after our guns, over this, me most of all, there is a very and Bruce's comment ties into this. And no, it is the serious, Bruce. You're perfectly right. Criminal record, no chance of police clearance, no immigration. Is it that serious? Yes, it is. Well, from my opinion, it has the potential to be.
I think I don't want to say I think, but I know that Francois de Kock and I did a live stream with us on CHS Bunker with Aziza, and we looked at the offences in the act, and unlawful possession of a firearm is a minimum of 15 years, I think.
No, it's a bad one.
It's serious.
So
and they're not going to say, oh, but you were a lawful firearm owner and you didn't use 2 amnesties. We're going to be sympathetic. The courts are not sympathetic on this. And I don't think that after this amnesty has lapsed, there will be any room. It's a 6-month amnesty.
Yeah.
And
worst
we
case,
need to start communicating this. Because how do the people that don't follow social media, how do the people that don't follow social media find out about this? This is at the shooting clubs. This is within your community. Bring it to people's attention. Get that knowledge out there. Help people, because 470,000 people aren't watching this live stream. 470,000 people aren't following Martin Hood and Gosa and all the different pages. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not. Go and educate the people in your firearm community and start becoming part of the active firearm community. We need to start taking this very seriously. Protect yourself,
And get loud, get involved. And I've been screaming about this for a long time. Is our community is too apathetic. We need to take this very seriously. There's a reason why I pay my speeding fines, folks, not because I love the city of Cape Town and I would like to contribute to their Christmas party. There's a reason why I wake up in a cold sweat at 3 a.m. sometimes and I check the expiry dates on my license cards. It's because I've got a massive target on my back. I'm pretty sure with everything I've said in the public space that the cops fucking hate me, and I do not want to give them this much to nail me on. I am trying to be the most law-abiding anarchist that has ever walked the crust of this earth, because by fact of that alone means that they can't touch me. And that's ultimately how we're going to have to live our lives with this while we fight to get the laws changed and rational, because we can win that fight. We've wasted far too much time litigating against the bullshit. We need to leave the courts of law, going to the court of public opinion, and that's my 2 cents on how we're going to win this. And we will win it, but we need you to help us win this. Can't do it alone.
We need you.
I've got a huge ego,
awesome.
but not even I can move that boulder alone.
Yeah, I'm just, I feel for the people. I've said it before as well. Like, there are a lot of oaks that really they were legit reasons, or it's just that one that slipped past.
There were legit reasons 10, in between all of
there's
us.
There's 10 lawful licenses there. They're all licensed, but there's that one, excessively expensive rifle or shotgun standing in the safe, and now you're going to hand it over. So, for me, that's extremely painful, and I feel that pain, and I understand. I know, what you guys are going through, but, it's a thing of just, again, consider the value of the firearm and consider the consequences of non-compliance and submission. We don't want to, and there's no liberty in this. And unfortunately,
and we don't like this.
We don't like this, but do we like this lockdown and the way that we're being, treated? No, we don't. But we also don't now arbitrarily go and look for shit and, contravene it, because we value our, social standing, and we value the fact that we have families and we are responsible for them. And, we need to take that responsibility now and take ownership of this opportunity to get ourselves back in line, and I think it's as simple as that. Yeah. And again, please, guys, stop it with a convenient interpretation. Be careful.
Yeah. Be careful of trying to find loopholes that don't exist, because ultimately that's a fruitless path. Last thing from JD, and this is something we might have to answer in a future live stream as we get more clarity on the directives of how the Amnesty is going to be handled. This is one of those questions we might have to come back to. Yeah,
this was the question about the AK in the garden. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I can't, because the way it's worded now, whoever surrenders that, he can apply for the license, and that's how it's worded. But I'm sure, again, I don't like to be purposive in interpretation. What was the intention behind this? But be careful. Let's wait for some direction. Let's get some clarity.
That's it. And on that bombshell, guys, we don't want to keep you from carte blanche, which I think, no, that's already been going on. See, I haven't had a television in my house in like 7 years. But
too mainstream.
Exactly, way too mainstream. Apologies for the slightly late start, guys. Max, thank you for taking time out of your very busy full Sunday to dispense some legal knowledge with us.
Thanks for your time.
We'll do this if you're open to us. We'll do this again, and we'll try to drop some more truth bombs and stuff. But this was very well attended,
we get some more clarity.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we're gonna leave it there. But you have a fantastic evening. From myself, Gideon. Bye bye, and Max. Anything you'd like to end off with?
Just thank you very much for your time, and guys, again, get some legal opinions. Go and get a written legal opinion. It's worth the money. If you're not comfortable with my views or that sort of thing, I don't shove my views or opinions down people's throats. Go and get some independent advice. I know it's valuable to you, but as I say, you've got responsibilities, and you don't want to go from being a law-abiding guy to, over something arbitrary like this, to, prejudicing yourself to the extremist.
Yeah, and if you find that the stream was useful, please share it with your friends and family. I'll make a short 10-minute video specifically about what we discussed about using the amnesty tonight. But obviously that's going to be vague-ish until the directive gives further clarity. Okay, guys, that's it from me. Max?
Perfect.
Donkey?
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Cheers.
Thank you, and good night.